when I was with Hizb-ut-Tahrir for 13 years of my life, I taught this ideology. I propagated it. I set it up in countries, and I recruited people. I recruited my family members, and I've recruited people who have gone on also to be tortured. In some cases, their spines have been dislocated. I know how I trained them, and I know what I taught them. And grievances, social grievances, economic grievances, I can assure you were the last thing on our minds. Because what we did, and what we were very careful to do, was to play on the grievances for somebody who's not yet an ideologue, somebody who has not yet been recruited to the ideas. We would access the discussion through the grievances, playing on those grievances to build an ideological framework, to then allow them to reinterpret those grievances through the meta-narrative that we've sold them, through the framework that we have built in their minds. We called it the process of culturing. The process of culturing within Hizb-ut-Tahrir is actually formalized as a system of 2 hours, which is obligatory for every single activist of HT to attend 2 hours of intense cultural discussions, i.e. indoctrination. We call it culturing. 2 hours every week where you discuss in depth, in detail, the theory, Islamist theory, as articulated by Nabahani, the founder of HT. And then the member will also have his own circles that he teaches, as well as being taught, he teaches others. So minimum you have 4 hours of intense theoretical discussions every week, minimum. People like myself had more responsibilities. We had to give more than one teaching session. So you're literally living in that theory, and I know how we train people. We access them through the grievances. We would use those grievances. So let me talk you through a case study. Egypt, take Egypt because I know Egypt quite well, having been there for so long. We would say, look, Egypt is a dictatorship. You say, of course it is. Now somebody who's not ideological yet will just have a natural problem with dictatorships. We say, this government doesn't represent you. This government is not representative of its people. It's not there for the interests of its people. It's a dictatorship and therefore it's illegitimate. You say, yeah, pretty much easy to agree with. But then we'd sit him down. And then we'd start discussing what's the alternative to this dictatorship. And here we get into theoretical discussions about democracy. Theoretical discussions about theology, politics, which we at the Quilliam Foundation generally would call theopolitical discussions, because it's an abuse of theology for political ends. We get involved in these theopolitical discussions with a view to refuting democracy as an alternative, refuting freedom and liberty as an alternative to dictatorships, and also make the political point that who's supporting these dictatorships? Well, of course, it's the free democratic countries. And then provide a frame through which we can say, what's the solution? Building in the ideological paradigms, we end up with the guy saying the caliphate is the solution, without him realizing that the initial thing that attracted him to the discussion was an opposition, say for the sake of argument, an opposition to dictatorships. The solution he's arrived at is also a dictatorship. The caliph is elected only once in his life, according to HT theory, and that's even indirectly elected, i.e. through an electoral college. Once that caliph is elected, there's absolutely no constitutional right within HT theory, and generally within Islamist theory post-HT, to deselect that caliph. Even the judge, which HT called Qadi al-Madhalim, the judge who's responsible for constitutional violations, that judge who has the so-called power to dismiss the caliph if he violates the constitution, which in HT theory means violates the Sharia. That judge is appointed by the caliph and is dismissed by the caliph at will. That's HT theory. So we've taken somebody who had a problem with dictatorships and given them a dictatorship as an antidote. And they were perfectly happy with that through the process of indoctrination.